Welcome back to my channel. I'm Angela and we're going on a pantry tour today. I do have a pantry tour that I have up on my channel from over the summer. So if you'd like to check that out and then come back, that is available on my page. Today we're going to go around and look at things that we have added together over the summer with the produce coming out of my garden, or maybe some items that I grabbed from a local farmer's market. But we definitely stocked quite a bit together, and I'd like to show you kind of where I stand at the moment. Something that is different from the tour that I did over the summer is I'm actually going to show you a part of my pantry that I haven't yet, and that is the part where I keep my freeze-dried and dehydrated goods, as well as my spice area. So, spice and tea blend area actually. So I'm excited to show you that. We're also going to check out the freezers, because canning, freeze drying, and dehydrating isn't the only way I preserve my food. And we did a little bit of freezing with the produce that came out of my garden, and I'd like to show you what I have when it comes to that. You've seen my beef freezer. You are going to see my hog freezer here in just a couple of days. We did pick up our hogs, and so you will be seeing what that looks like. So then I will show you the two freezers that I have here in my pantry. We are not gonna go into the nitty-gritty. We aren't gonna go jar by jar. It's going to be a longer video anyhow, considering the additional areas that I am going to show you. So I do have timestamps available for the times that indicate which part of my pantry we are checking out, in case you want to jump ahead to something. So if you have any questions throughout my tour, please go ahead and leave those suggestions or comments down below, and I'll be happy to continue that conversation with you. So let's get into the tour. Okay, so pretty up high here on my very top shelf, we did not add anything together this year, which is anything condiment related. It could be peanut butter, Nutella, salad dressings, chili sauce, taco sauce, mustards, ketchup, mayonnaise, that sort of thing. It's generally a lot of store-bought foods. I do have some items further down that I do also can myself. I just didn't do any this year. I didn't have a need for it. Some things that I do can are mustards, and I'll do flavored mustards even. Plum sauce, which is fantastic for Asian and Chinese style dishes. And a Thai sweet and spicy dipping sauce, which is phenomenal, but I don't need to do a lot of that. It's lasted me a couple years now. So that top row, barbecue sauce, all of that is store-bought, and we did not add anything together, so nothing has changed up there. That was in the first tour to now. The next row down is my beans area. I have things like navy beans and baked beans. We've not done any beans together just yet, but it is on my to-do list over the winter. It will be after Thanksgiving. I don't have a lot of time before then. We are going out of state for Thanksgiving, and so I won't be home for about over a week. And when I get back, I will probably want to do just a couple small sessions of some canning. So we'll do that together. We've got kidney beans, baked beans. Oh gosh, I think honestly it's almost like there's a lot of beans we need to do. Kidney beans, baked beans, chickpeas, and black-eyed peas. I have some store-bought beans and various different sorts of things like okra and tomatoes, creamed corn, things that I purchased from the store. Some of that is just residual of having over time, and I will not be purchasing again once I go and work my way through it. And then some things I might purchase from time to time, depending on whether or not I grow it in my garden. For instance, I have wax beans up there. I did not grow wax beans this year, and so I'm out of the ones that I did grow and can, and so I will purchase a couple cans of that from the store because of a dish I make various times throughout the year. Then I have something like Sloppy Joe sauce, which I can myself, and I also have a store-bought version. I have a couple store-bought because we weren't a super fan of the homemade version I did this last time. So I'm gonna have to figure out what I did the first time around and try and mimic that more than what I did this time. So what I do is I take 1 jar of mine, 1 jar of the store-bought, and we tend to like it just fine with that. Until I tweak that recipe to being something that we really enjoy, I will have a couple store-bought versions on hand. Cranberry sauce is something that I really wanted to do before before Thanksgiving, and I just don't see that I'm going to have the time, which is working out just fine because I'm not cooking and hosting Thanksgiving dinner this year. So the one single lonesome jar I have on my shelf will do me just fine until closer to Christmas, if not after the holidays. This is the time of year, however, when you see them in the store to grab them, stock up on them, and they freeze quite well, and that's when I will go and make my cranberry sauce. I might attempt a cranberry jelly this year too. I've not done that yet. I usually just do the whole berry. This is my last one, and I know for sure I'm gonna want some of this on my shelf because I do enjoy this several times throughout the year. It is not just a holiday condiment side dish for my family and myself. So we will do this together once I am able to get around to doing that. Moving down from the next shelf, I do have a few things tucked away in the corner of items like different types of Spans, original, jalapeno, bacon flavored. It is not something we eat. I would say occasionally, still is more often than when we actually do eat them. But it is nice to have on your shelf. Lord knows there's a very long shelf life, but then it's still good for a very long time, even after the date that is on the can. So we definitely have quite a while before we would have to go through it. And in case of an emergency, it's nice to have some of those on the shelf. And because of the extended shelf life, I will oftentimes grab a few of those along with some store-bought canned vegetables for pantry stock-ups from whomever, my church or a child's school might be asking for donations. We also have things like dried beef and different store-bought chickens and beef on the shelf as well for more emergency style situations. Now that I'm really into canning everything myself, I will no longer be purchasing those from the store, the chicken, turkey, or beef, and I will go through what I have here on my shelf. But again, sometimes for emergency purposes, it's nice to have store-bought foods accessible. Vegetables is something that we did together. We did green beans and we did corn. I did a white corn variety and I did a yellow corn variety, and you were here with me when we did those. So these will be on my shelf until I'm ready to use them, of course. And this is something that I generally do a different amount each year. I do gauge off of my prior year how many we went through, so I can kind of figure out how many I think I need for projecting for the year ahead. I also have canned carrots, which is actually one of my favorites. I know it's not a fan for most people, but I do really love them. In fact, we have already gone through several jars, and I question whether or not I will have enough to get me through until next year. These are just all of the carrots that I have. I do not have any more in my overflow pantry downstairs. I do have some store-bought, however. I'm not sure really how many. I'm sure just a couple. Worst case scenario, I of course could go purchase more if need be, but I will certainly try and use up what I have first. And then I have Asian carrots, and you can't really see it in there, but that's a star anise that's in there, and so it's flavored with ginger and different types of Asian spices. Not my favorite. I canned these in 2021. I do only have 2 jars left. So I try and use those up when I'm making a big dinner with an Asian or Chinese cuisine. This recipe, I do believe, and I'll correct myself on the screen if it's not correct, but if you have the Not Your Mama's canning book, I do believe that that recipe was found in there if you're interested. And then of course I still have my beets, which I have gone through a couple jars since the what I will and will not can again video. So I am really working to try and get through these jars here. And then I have a couple jars of canned spinach. If you have any suggestions on what I can do with canned spinach, please let me know down in the comments, because my husband purchased a ton of these 2 years ago, and I still have 2 full rows of cans left that we need to get through. He purchased these for when he was on a specialty diet for a bodybuilding show that he did a couple years ago. And, you know, definitely want to work through them. They're good for, I think, another year. So October of next year. So we've got a little while for the best by date, of course. But I'd like to work through them. I don't want them sitting on my shelf for forever. I'm struggling with using them outside of throwing them in a soup. My tomato section is both canned goods from the store and store-bought. There are certain things that I just do not can myself, and tomato paste is one of them. I would need a super abundance of tomatoes. It would be a year of maybe just tomato paste. Takes a long time to cook down. It's absolutely possible, and I know there's a lot of people who do it. I just choose to purchase it from the store. It's just easier for me right now. I do can my own tomato items like crushed tomatoes. I have whole tomatoes, which I don't have any up here. I have a couple jars downstairs in my overflow, which I need to get up here. And then this year we did together stewed tomato sauce. It's just something that I needed to do. I had to empty my freezers, and I had to think of the quickest thing I could do with my frozen tomatoes, and I chose stewed tomatoes. I did use some of those to make my own spaghetti sauce along with some other canned tomatoes, and it was phenomenal. It was so good. Eggplant campanata we did together. Absolutely one of probably my top 5 favorite items to have on my shelf. If you did not see that video, go check it out. It is absolutely phenomenal. I love it so much. Now I did pizza sauce this year. I did it a little bit early on into the season. I took out, I think it was like 5 bags of tomatoes that was from my garden, but I did not can them like I usually do. I freeze dried the pizza sauce. So I'm gonna see how that works for us this year. It'll save me some room here on my canning shelf, and it just simply saves me time. I can cook down my tomato sauce, flavor it how I need to for pizza sauce, put it in the freeze dryer, and 4 trays doesn't even fill up a half-gallon jar of pizza sauce. So I did a couple batches, and so when we get to the freeze-dried section here in my pantry, I will show you that. So this is the last jar I have of actual pizza sauce until we tap into the freeze-dried kind, reconstituting it with just some water to the consistency and thickness that we would prefer. And I'm going to see how that works out for us this year. I have just a couple jars of like specialty type of spaghetti sauces, which I really don't plan to purchase. I don't go through it very quickly. We really are just a simple spaghetti sauce type of a family. My what I will and will not can again video, I share with you how I will not can my own spaghetti sauce again. I just don't like the way the meat turns out in the sauce. So I decided if I do spaghetti sauce again, it will be without the meat. I think that would be just fine. I just didn't do any of it that way this year. I'm working on trying to just make my own spaghetti sauce for the dinner itself that time. And we'll see how that goes. I do have some other store-bought tomato products, sun-dried tomatoes, Rotel. I have whole jalapenos. I have a few diced tomatoes as well because I don't have any left from last year, or I think it was 2 years ago that I did tomatoes. And I do like having some of it for different purposes, so I do have just about a row of diced tomatoes from the store. Chipotles and adobo, I absolutely love, love, love. And green chilies, I absolutely love. So those two are actually must-haves on my pantry shelf. I have my own hatch chilies that I canned. I discuss how it's a struggle using these up in another video. I think it was my pantry tour video, or the what I will can and not can again video. They're just really spicy, so they're hard to use up. Something I did this year, but we did not do it together, are peppers. I love having these little tiny roasting peppers in a jar ready to add flavor to many, many dishes. I grew these peppers myself this year, and so I love being able to have this on my shelf, not only because it's homegrown, but because of the flavor boost it can give so many different dishes. Over here I do have some of my salsa and relish type of items. So we did the corn salsa together. We did peach salsa, and we did regular salsa. We've already gone through, I think, like 4-5 pints of salsa. This is something that I have to do every single year. So if it's not a tomato canning year for me, I still grow just a couple plants for things like salsa. If I have to do like maybe a campanata, something like that, I will have tomatoes then for yearly type of canning sessions, but I don't grow an abundance of tomatoes because I don't do tomatoes diced, pureed, whole sauce. I don't do that every year. It's a lot of work, so I do tend to take a year off in between doing those type of projects, but salsa, we eat through it so quickly, I have to do it every year. This batch in particular was very, very good, and I do have a video up on how I made this. It is spicy, but it's not like not enjoyable type of spicy. If heat bothers you, then if you go and watch that video, you'll just have to lessen the amount of peppers you put in it, of course. But it was so good. Moving down is my fruit section. All the way down, I also have vinegars. Vinegars we did together this year. We just did one. I remember which one it was. The mulled blackberry vinegar. I can't wait to try this out on a ham this Christmas, and hopefully then even after that, but it would make fantastic salad dressing as well. I have blueberry, strawberry, pineapple vinegars, but then I also have extracts. That I make myself: orange, lemon, coconut, coffee, lavender. Those add really wonderful boosts of flavor in all different type of baking goods, salad dressings, and even certain type of cooking, side dishes, stuff like that. We didn't do any fruit together this year. I just didn't need to put any on my shelf, so I'm hoping well, not hoping, I'm pretty certain next year we are going to do pie fillings together. One of my stock up hauls, you see that I purchased just a couple cans of different type of pie fillings, just so I'd have it on my shelf. I do have what was supposed to be apple pie filling, but I didn't use the right kind of apples the year that I did this. And so it basically just turns to mush. So it's a very sweet applesauce. My family prefers an applesauce that is unsweetened, no cinnamon. Occasionally we might doctor it up, but for the most part, apples are sweet enough on their own that you don't need to add anything. And so it's really hard to use this in things other than like muffins or pancakes or something. So unfortunately it doesn't make a good pie filling. I learned my lesson when it comes to the variety of your apple really, really matters. I knew that, I don't know, I guess I just thought that the apple would be good for pie filling, and it's not. I do have apple butters and pear butters on my shelf. Blueberries, mandarin oranges, pineapple. Oh, I'm lying straight to your face. We did pineapple together. I don't know what I was thinking. We did pineapple together, so I guess we did one fruit together. We did pineapple. Next row down starts the pickled items, like pickles and different type of pickled peppers and cowboy candy. That's what I was trying to think of. We did the jalapenos together, one of my family's favorites. I generally have to do this each and every year as well. We did not do these peppers together. This is a pepper blend from my garden, both sweet and spicy. And it's just in a vinegar brine, nothing special. These are really good on pizzas or subs. They're actually really good even in salads type of dishes too, or like chicken salad. I use it in a lot of different ways actually. In a couple of my videos, I mentioned a Trader Joe's hot pepper sauce. And I always list what it is, but I figured I would show you. This is spicy. It is amazing. It makes one of the best Cuban sandwiches. If you want to spice it up a little bit, put a little bit of this on a Cuban sandwich. It'll never be the same for you ever again. So we use this quite a bit. I have not done my Trader Joe's shopping. When I go, it's usually somewhere between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I don't know if I will go this year. I don't know that I really need anything. And the way my treatments fall, I get infusions that lower my immune system, which is why I stay out of the stores this time of year especially. Falls right where I'm at my weakest when it comes to my immune system. And so I don't think I'm gonna go this year, especially since I don't need anything. And if I am in need of something, I could have my daughter go because she loves Trader Joe's. So I could always say, hey, pick me up a couple of these when you're over, you know, in that area. So, but this is amazing. I have a couple jars of these, so I don't anticipate I'll need any, you know, before next year anyhow. From last year, I still have some cowboy banana peppers, which is basically the same sweet brine but with spicy banana peppers instead of jalapenos. These are very good as well. We did pickles together. Moving down the line, I have a couple different juices. We did Concord grape juice and we did cranberry juice. These both darkened up quite significantly since the day that I canned them. They look beautiful and they taste amazing, absolutely amazing. Bottom row are store-bought food snack items. As well as some juices and canned water. This type of section will change given the time of the year that it is. The snack area will generally change over the summertime when I've got kids home all day. But generally there's just a few quick, convenient type of items to maybe throw in a lunch bag or snack on the weekends. Okay, up above me where the grocery sign is where I keep all of my homemade broths. I have chicken, turkey, beef, ham, and pork. And then I have just a couple store-bought bone broths as well. But that's where I keep them. That is something that certain type of broths, that section will grow while others are diminishing, and then I'll do a big quantity of another kind and that one grows. That's where having to do signs all of the time on placeholders just would not benefit me here in this pantry. So we just did a ton of chicken. I did that, and then I'm going to bring you along for the pork stock that we do together with the pork bones that I got from the 2 hogs this year. Moving down from there, and the next couple rows are actually all of my proteins, my meats, my chicken, pork, and beef, and ham. I have ham up there as well. I don't believe we did any meats together, solo type of meats, other than the ground beef. We did this together. It's one of my husband's favorites. I've already got a couple jars missing, but I love it too because it just makes for quick, convenient type of dinners when we're in a rush, getting home late, just don't want to cook, and didn't take anything out to thaw. Any of my meats really come in handy for that. Beef stew, which I can turn into a plethora of items, depending on how I decide to spice it up, of course. We didn't do any chicken together. I don't foresee I'm going to need to do any chicken for the foreseeable future. At some point next year I will need to do chicken, and I will bring you with me when I do that. But chicken tends to be a showstopper here in the pantry. It looks a little bit like a science experiment, I will give you that, but it makes some of the absolute best chicken you will ever have. The broth that this makes is one of the best broths you'll ever have as well. If there's ever one thing that you're going to can, I would actually recommend chicken due to the taste, the health benefits, the versatility, the convenience behind it, and the cost saving factor. If you buy it in bulk, you tend to get a little bit of a discount there, and then you're taking today's cost and you're able to use it at tomorrow when there's a different cost when it comes to pretty much anything that we do, which is also really fantastic. We did quite a few soups together. We did taco soup, and we did white chicken chili, chicken verde chili. I guess it depends on technically what you want to call it, because I did use a verde sauce in it. Oh, it is so good. Both of these are absolutely phenomenal. We have gone through a couple jars of those already. And then chicken tortilla soup is one that we did. My daughter just had this actually 2 nights ago. It was soup night here, and that's the type that she chose. In fact, she's already eaten a few jars of these just on her own. It's one of her favorites. I absolutely love having soup on my shelf because I can open a couple jars and feed the whole family, or I could just feed one individual depending on what's going on that day. And of course, it makes for a really nice, quick, easy lunch. We did cabbage soup together, and then we did South African chakalaka. There is a video up on how I did both of these. It's in the same video if you want to go check that out. Both of these are absolutely fantastic. I gifted my mom these, and she said they were absolutely delicious. And so these will be on my yearly canning. First time I've done both of these, and so I will can these each year when necessary. Now, what pantry is complete without Kraft macaroni and cheese? Velveeta, Lipton onion soup mix, and of course, cream of something soups. It's not a perfect pantry. We don't eat perfect all of the time. There is a time and place for these type of items. I really do not use the cream of something soups as often as would make sense for the amount that I have. Something that I'm definitely falling back off of purchasing. I just find that I don't make enough casserole type of dishes or roast or anything where I use those sorts of things. But in the event of an emergency, in the event that I become really ill and I can't cook, they just make for quick, convenient type of dishes. And I do like having some of those here in the pantry. Macaroni and cheese makes a really quick side dish for a picky eater. It's something that can be made all on their own for my older kids. It's something that I can tell you, if I pulled up receipts, because I would purchase them from Sam's Club, I purchase the whole box I think twice a year. We really don't go through it very often. I do have a lot of other type of soups here on my shelf that I did last year. Ham and bean soup, pasta, what is it called? Pasta fagioli or something like that soup, which is another one of my daughter's favorites. Beef stew, chicken base soup. I just made some actually the other day. Doesn't look very pretty. It's kind of cloudy, but it's just what you'd find in a chicken soup without the noodles. I do believe I go into more details in my other pantry tour if you're curious about some more of the specific of different type of meals in a jar or soups that I have on hand. We did do potatoes with each other this year, so I have quite a few jars of potatoes. I'm actually going to be cracking one of these open with dinner tonight. Got home much later than we thought we would. My husband had just a very minor surgery today, and so I was able to get the roast into the oven, and that's going to cook for a couple hours, and I thought I just don't have time to be peeling any potatoes to add to it. So the last hour of cook time, I'm opening up one of these suckers, draining it off, putting it in with the roast, and it'll be delicious. Several cans of pumpkin puree. It is not recommended to can your own pumpkin puree, but you can pumpkin chunks and then puree it and strain it yourself. I did not do that this year. I do have freeze-dried pumpkin that I will show you. Butternut squash. This one has cranberries in it. I will not ever can butternut, with the exception of when I make a soup base. I just did this the other day, and I do believe I uploaded a short on it. Oh, I had emergency dental work done a couple days ago, and so you know, getting those top last teeth removed is not fun, and you have to be careful with what you eat. And so blending this up was perfect, perfect, perfect. So I absolutely would make butternut squash soup base to blend up, of course, as a soup. But just to try to have as a side dish on your plate, no, don't recommend that. I know I skipped the salmon because I've not done salmon for a couple of years. I've been giving a couple jars little by little to my mom, who absolutely loves it. So I just don't know why I struggle with using it. I do have a couple recommendations from you guys, and I'm going to try that. But I just don't think I would use it enough to go through canning it myself. I would just rather have it frozen and eat it that way than having my own canned salmon. I'll just continue purchasing it from the store. And then we have things like anchovies, we have sardines. My husband loves those types of items as well. Okay, let's go over to my freeze-dried and dehydrated area. So you're gonna get a complete walkthrough and overview, you know, first-hand type of view that will sort of encapsulate everything. But what you can't see right now is the very top shelf where I have my noodles, and they're just in a Tupperware type of container, and then some boxed there towards the end. Nothing too special, but I keep all of my noodles on that very top shelf. This next row here is where I keep a lot of my dried beans and legumes, split peas and lentils. I even have different type of sprouting seeds up here, various different kinds. And it helps me when I'm coming into looking, you know, for something that's semi-categorized, if you will. The next row here are different rice and dehydrated rice. So I have brown rice that's been dehydrated, jasmine rice that's dehydrated, and basically it's just an instant rice. When I am out of that, I've decided I'm not making more, because usually what I do is I will go through it towards the end. I make big batches of rice and dehydrate more, shake out what's in the jar, add the new and put the older on top. But I've not done that because I want to try and see what the difference is between freeze-dried instant rice and my dehydrated, to see what version I like the best. I also have things like quinoa flakes, which I purchased from Azure Standard, and quinoa flakes, but then I have just regular quinoa, which is a good protein source, and it's something that I try and add into our meals several times throughout the month if possible. Moving down is where we get into the dehydrated foods. So I have dehydrated citrus. I absolutely love using these in my teas. I am coming away from dehydrating citrus and freeze drying it. I do think I prefer dehydrated simply for my hot teas. Freeze dried, it's okay, and if that's all I had, that's what I would use. But I just feel like this holds up better to the heat than the freeze dried does. This is the pumpkin puree that I have, and it was freeze dried, so that's just pumpkin. I could reconstitute this into a really thick creamy paste and make pumpkin pie from it, anything that I would use a can of pumpkin puree for. And it just takes up this little teeny tiny jar. This was, I don't remember, it was full at one point in time. I don't remember the equivalent to how much is in here, but it's quite a bit compared to what it would take up on my canning shelf if I canned the cubes of pumpkin anyway. Pineapple, it's nice just to snack on it the way it is, but it's also good to add in teas, even iced teas and water to flavor your water. There's a lot of different ways you could use it. Okay, so these I purchased from Azure Standard. I have, let me turn the label around, green pepper and red pepper. With the amount of peppers I grew this year, something like this really isn't that necessary, but I've definitely resorted to using this quite a bit in my previous years before I had a really good harvest of my own peppers. This was filled up, I believe, twice last year, and I filled it up just recently. This one too, but you can see I've used some of the green pepper already. Carrots, you have seen me use, I believe, a handful of times, if not maybe just under a handful. I love having dehydrated carrots on my shelf because I generally don't have fresh carrots available. I didn't grow any in my garden this year. I ran out of time. It was the garden that almost wasn't. I'm going to grow quite a bit next year. But I did purchase the carrots from Azure, but those I freeze dried. So between the dehydrated and my freeze dried, I'm okay with not having fresh carrots available because those will work just fine. Aside from maybe if you wanted fresh carrots to add into like a pot roast or something, but to go out to the grocery store to buy a bag of carrots isn't really, you know, a must for me. I'm okay with having it in other different forms, but I love adding these to soups and stuff. It's just my favorite. Spinach, dehydrated or freeze-dried. I do prefer my dark leafy greens to be freeze-dried. So I will not dehydrate those anymore. I do kale and I do spinach, and these are great for adding into just pretty much anything. You can even blend it up in a smoothie. You've seen me use this. I absolutely love having this blend on my shelf. Dehydrated blend carrots, corn, green beans, peas, corn, green beans, carrots, peas. I think that's all that's in there, right? Maybe onions, I'm not sure. Those are fantastic for soups, casseroles, pot pies, a side dish even if you hydrate it, you know, it's just fantastic. This row here is where I keep things like chocolate chips. I have different kinds of sugars, maple sugar, coconut sugar. Depending on what I'm making and who I am making it for, I might need to use a different type of sugar. A pantry must-have for me is powdered milk and powdered buttermilk. I don't go to the grocery stores very often, and darn it, if every time I'm in the mood to make something that requires buttermilk, and of course I don't have it, sometimes I can plan ahead to make sure I have it, but most of the time I just want to make something on a whim. You can of course make your own. It's more like a soured type of milk, right? But I just like to have it in this form. Works beautifully, fantastic. Powdered milk I use all of the time. I've discussed this in other videos, how I do not use my sweet milk, drinking milk, for cooking or baking. There are a few small exceptions where I will use the whole milk for certain things, but it's not very often. I will reconstitute my powdered milk in place of, because drinking milk has just gotten so expensive. And you know, the quality, if you will, that true flavor that we enjoy drinking from the milk is not necessary in a baked good. It's just the protein that is, you know, in that milk that helps that recipe out, and you get that just fine from powdered milk. I have a couple jars of dehydrated bread cubes. This is an example of when I say in my bread recipes that you cannot mess up bread, because there's always something you can do with it. Now, these weren't a messed up recipe. Sometimes it's just I haven't gone through the loaf quickly enough. I will dehydrate it and then I will use it for croutons. I will blend it for breadcrumbs, or I will make like a bread pudding or a French toast breakfast casserole. There's a lot of things you could do with bread that doesn't work out besides throwing it into the trash. So don't do that. You can dehydrate in your oven. You're just trying to dry out the bread. So don't throw that bread away if you're new to bread making. There's always something you can do with it. This shelf down here and on the floor is a mixture of different freeze-dried kind of things. My carrots, which will need to be refilled soon. Squash, which I need to refill. I use that a lot when I'm making homemade pasta sauce, meatballs, meatloaf, certain different types of casseroles that my picky eater would actually eat. I use that type of thing to sneak into dishes so that there's some boost of nutrition in there when possible. And then fruits is always a really popular love, whether it's just snacking the way it is, or I have made a pie out of the freeze-dried fruit. It's amazing, it's wonderful. You'd have no idea that it was once freeze-dried. So I love having different types of freeze-dried fruit on hand. I, of course, will reuse a good jar when it comes my way. So in here, which it used to, of course, be full, is freeze-dried eggs. Love having freeze-dried eggs, especially when my hens are on vacation and they aren't laying regularly. My newest additions are actually starting to lay recently. Today we got 5 eggs, which is like awesome. So our new girls are slowly starting to lay. We have we have 9 new hens. So of the 9, 5 I know for sure are laying. Maybe 6 if they're kind of going back and forth like on it every other day. I'm not sure, but we're getting quite a few eggs right now, but that's going to slow down and taper off, of course, with the colder, shorter days coming ahead of us. And so I can use freeze-dried eggs in all of my baking dishes. I've reconstituted this to make French toast and it was phenomenal. I have not tried it on something like just scrambled eggs just yet, but to throw in for your baked goods, it works amazing. It works just fine. And so I like having this, so even if my husband's going to the store, he can just get maybe a carton of eggs that will get us for our scrambled egg breakfast type of needs, and I won't need to, you know, buy any more because I'll just use my freeze-dried. That's the pizza sauce that I freeze-dried. I have another one of these downstairs in my overflow pantry. So I'm going to take you along the next time we have pizza night and we need to use this. We'll see how it reconstitutes. Is it as user-friendly as just cracking open a jar? We'll see. I can't imagine it's that much more difficult or time-consuming, but we'll see how we like it. I have to mention something fun, which would be freeze-dried candies. These are Skittles. I had to hide this jar, otherwise it would be gone in no time. And when we have people coming to visit, they always like to come and check out the pantry, and I want to make sure I have a little something fun for them to taste test while they're here. And so I have some freeze-dried Skittles. That very top row up here is my dried teas. Spearmint, chamomile, jasmine, those type of things. I think there's some dried rose petals and other fun different flowers for making like Epsom salt type of baths and blends, things like that. And then the following shelf under that, I have different tea blends. Cranberry orange tea, sunset, so then other different kinds of blends. I have different kinds of specialty fats like duck fat, and then I have some lamb tallow preserved lemons, which you can absolutely do yourself, and I just picked these up from Thrive Market, so I've not done my own for a little while. Different types of honeys, Jupiter berries, allspice, things like that. Moving from here down are all of my different spices for cooking, single type of spices or a spice blend. And so I do keep spices in my kitchen, but for the most part, when I'm coming to gather the ingredients that I need for my dinner or lunch or whatever I am making, I will just come and grab the spices that I need too. So I'm not like walking back and forth and in and out. I just come do and grab everything I need and have it there with me in the kitchen. I just like to have it here in my pantry so I can keep it pretty well organized and accessible. These are the water glassed eggs that I did from our hens this past summer. It used to be full. We've used quite a bit. So I did learn that I don't like the flavor of water glassed eggs. There just is a flavor to it. However, again, I don't mind using this in a baked good type of a dish. When it's an ingredient in something, but just to crack open and eat as scrambled eggs or fried eggs or whatever, I'm not a fan. So if we get such an abundance that we risk losing some of our fresh eggs, I will absolutely continue to water glass. But I think my first preservation go-to method would be the freeze drying. Okay, again, I apologize for the lighting. Unfortunately, all of my lights are on one switch, so I can't turn one on and leave another off. But behind me, you will see what appears to be 3 freezers. However, this here is a refrigerator, and I have 2 deep freezes. The refrigerator is pretty empty. I've got like a whole shelf full of tallow. Got a big bag of green beans that my husband pulled when he took my garden out, and just a couple odds and ends of type of stuff. There's really not much in there. My freezers, however, we will go through. So this whole shelf right here is peppers that I grew in my garden. That's the main way I chose just to preserve my peppers this year. So it's so versatile this way compared to canning. It really is only good for adding some flavor to your dish, but you don't get the actual pepper. Same with freeze drying. I don't care for freeze dried peppers, with the exception of jalapenos, because I'm generally not looking for that actual texture bite of a jalapeno. I just need it for flavor, for that spice. It lends to the dish. When I'm looking for an actual pepper type of ingredient, I will use my freeze dried. I've got sweet peppers, I have hot peppers, I have poblanos, I have serranos, I have chilies, I have stuffed jalapenos. I've got them all, I think. This box here holds all of the diced onions that we did together. This is usually where I store all of my bread. I bake bread once a week, depending on the type of bread, sometimes every other week. Right now, I've got 2 bags of tallow. That's not tallow. Pork fat. Tomatillos that I need to certainly work through. And then I have the different kinds of breads just stuffed in there. So once I work through my tomatillos, next week I will be finishing rendering my lard. This will be completely freed up. And I will have my bread section back. In through here, I'm not going to move anything because I have it shoved in there not very well, are my blanched garden green beans and squash, my patty pan squash. I have different frozen chili and soups, and then this very bottom compartment down here is as much of a freezer meal as I get, and it's more of a dinner sides, if you will. So if I cook too much pasta for dinner, I will freeze it and put it down there. If I have leftover hash browns, it's usually lasagna, leftover foods, I will freeze down there and pull from there for lunches or another side dish or something for dinner. So that's generally as much of a freezer meal as I get, is down there in that section. My door is really kind of a hodgepodge of stuff, but mostly containers like this of different kinds of stock, or when I cook a pot roast, if I have a lot of broth left over from that pot roast, I will save it for my next pot roast. And then this way I save on ingredients. This, for instance, is Mississippi pot roast. So it's the broth, drippings, all that flavor that's in there that I couldn't use in dinner that night, I will freeze it. Lastly, this freezer has my dog's chicken up here, but of course we will eat it if need be. But it's the chicken leg quarters. Over here is mashed potatoes. I had to preserve the box of potatoes I got from Azure Standard, and so I did some pierogies, and whatever was left over I froze. So I just have a couple of these here in the freezer. These are fantastic. You pull them out frozen, put them in a casserole dish, heat it up in your oven, and after about 40 minutes or so you can go back in, kind of stir it up, add just a little bit of heavy cream or milk even, but just a little bit, and it creams back up beautifully. This shelf down here is where I would have the chicken that we would have for dinner and our lamb. And the bag is from the pork, the hog delivery that we had butchered this year. Those are all of our ham hocks, smoked ham hocks. And then down at the bottom are all of our whole roaster chickens with just a couple of these thrown in there. I freeze dried those for a party that we had, and I had several left over, and so we have certainly been enjoying eating those. Right now, this store is comprised of different cooked meats that I have: taco chicken, taco beef, plain cooked beef, Italian beef, generally leftovers or purposeful leftovers to have at the ready in my freezer. There are times where this version of meat works better than my canned meat, so I like to have just a little bit of this on hand for certain type of dishes. On my bread slicer, you will see I have my homegrown squash down here, pink banana, acorn, delicata, butternut, and one in the very far back, that tall orange one, is from my neighbor. He's not sure what it is, so it'll be fun when we go to eat that. I thank you for coming along. Please let me know if you have any questions. Please like and subscribe and share my channel with anybody who you think could benefit. I appreciate everybody's support. My channel continues to grow, and I benefit from each and every subscriber, because those of you who have reached out to me with suggestions and tips, I have really appreciated. I take them to heart, and I plan to try each and every suggestion I have received so far. So thank you for allowing me to learn from you as well. Until I see you again, take care, stay healthy, and I'll meet you back in the kitchen when I am using everything that I preserved to feed my family.